and commence with the meeting. I'm going to ask Commissioner Thomas if he'll give the invocation and lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity. We can come together and do our county's business. We just thank you for each of the citizens that are here and those that are at home. Just ask you to be present with us tonight. Just give us wisdom, give us knowledge, just give us the peace of understanding of knowing how to move forward in these tough decisions. We thank you and ask you to bless our county. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time I'm going to ask if we have any any changes or amendments to the agenda.
Not yet.
Let's go through the agenda then. Second.
If we don't have any changes, I'm going to make a motion to move them. Randy made the motion. Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
That's a first.
Yeah.
We got an hour. Something off.
Okay, citizens to be heard. Our first citizen is going to be Chris Russell.
You were the last one to be heard, the last one to meet.
Pledge of Allegiance. We got corrected the other night. We were saying it wrong. First of all, good evening, commissioners. First of all, I'd like to publicly congratulate the Wakulla Wetland Association for getting their petitions and getting on the ballot. That's a major milestone. It was the first beta test here in the county. It's good to see that the process does work, that the charter does spell out a good way to do it, and it's obviously achievable, so that is good news to see that. I still have concerns about it because it will amend the charter and your ability to amend an ordinance that is put in place by petition. I brought that forth to you twice already. It's on y'all. It's there. If a lawsuit comes on it, that's it. I've let you know about it, but that's okay. If it doesn't, the intent's there. It's good to go. They've got it. Also like to remind everybody that may be watching at home that this Thursday at 5:30 there is a Charter Review Committee meeting at 5:30 at the public library. And last time, as Dave said, I was just standing here not long ago, we were looking at getting a web page up. Do you know if that was up? I'm sorry, I've been out of town, Jessica. I didn't get up with you since then.
Jessica's in charge of web design.
Okay, so for those at home or those here, we're going to try to have a web page up by Thursday, possibly, so we can make sure that the citizens have the ability to know what's going on and put in comments and whatnot. I think Heather's still going to say that we can't interact back and forth, the 15 members, so that's going to get rid of that.
One way.
I'm sorry?
It's going to be one-way communication.
One-way communication. We'll just take that and then post it on Facebook or something. Anyway, I highly encourage all the citizens to come out. It's all about getting out. We are the conduit of the people. We've got to get the message. Come on out and let your comments be heard. You know, don't just have 15 people up there making a decision about your county charter. Come on and get involved. Thank y'all. Have a good night. Good meeting.
Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Victor Lambu.
Vic Lambu, 272 Pine Lane. I want to address my remarks to the last commission meeting and you, the chairman there. And I'm trying to say this delicately. You made this statement that, and I don't think you really meant it or thought about it, that the people that signed up for the petition drive had no idea or didn't understand what they were signing. Our people, we found when we did talk to them, they had great knowledge of what they were signing. Now, obviously, you may disagree with them, and you have every right to try to persuade them that they're making the wrong decision. But I do think you do owe them an apology. I know you didn't mean it the way it sounds, but I've heard a lot of remarks from people that were very insulted.
Okay, next one is Sandy Tedder.
I'm Sandy Tedder, Sopchoppy, Florida, and I wanted to say something about Commissioner Merritt's number 16 on the agenda, and that is that there are so many people that are disgruntled about what's going on with the wetlands changes that I would think that maybe we should wait until after the referendum, after the vote in November. That, to me, would make a lot of sense, because there are so many people that don't feel the same way that you four and a couple of other people in the county feel. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Bill Anderson.
Thank you. I think in the conducting the county's business, we ought to strive for best practices. So I wanted to call a few things to your attention that I've noticed in the last few meetings that I think could be improved, and if we did, I think we would have better outcomes for the county, for the citizens, and have greater respect for the governmental authority. I'm just going to give you a few examples, but I hope you will consider them as constructive criticism on ways we might be able to improve, and take that to heart and do so. Back in November at the BoCC meeting, you'll recall that the Panacea Incorporation issue was put on the ballot or on the agenda at the last minute with no notice to anyone basically to come forward that wasn't already here. So businesses or non-resident owners of property there could not comment on it, and they have no right to vote on that issue. On the December 9th, 2013 BoCC meeting, the airport master plan was considered. And you'll recall again that you spent $75,000 for a master plan, and then 3 hours before the meeting, there was a verbal amendment of that. And so at the meeting itself, there was no written materials to consider, but it was verbalized what those changes would be. And then it was delegated to staff to make those changes into the airport master plan. You'll recall, Commissioner Moore, that you said at the time that you were not going to spend a cent for the county's money for the airport, and wanted the homeowners association, and you wanted to stop the meeting and have them agree to pay that $6,000. And you said you wouldn't vote. That is not in the airport master plan as it came back from staff in that way. Similarly, Mr. Edwards said that all engineering studies would be done first before the purchase of property, and that was verbalized at the meeting repeatedly. If you look at the master plan that came back, that's not the way it is in the master plan. I think when something is not in a written form that you can really consider, and you have to verbalize it, and then staff does the whole plan, and there are very substantial changes in that, it ought to come back to the board to ratify whatever changes are made. That hasn't been done, and I don't think the airport master plan reflects what you all decided that you were going to do at that meeting. At the February 3rd, 2014 meeting, which was just recently held, there was a discussion on the realignment of the intersection at 319 and 98. And that whole discussion was on a prospective thing, what was going to be done. And Commissioner Moore sat silently by, knowing that a week prior he had sold his land for that. It was not a prospective thing. So all the discussion that you other commissioners had, you didn't have full information. And I don't think a commissioner should sit silently by and let something like that happen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Dana Peck.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. I have such a long list, I'm going to talk longer than I have time, so I'll just say what the point is up front. I think that this commission, the majority of the commissioners, have been kept in the dark about the intersection of 319 and 98 and the plan to leapfrog over all the other intersections in the county that are clogged and spend money on running an intersection through Mr. Moore's property to the high school. The question is, why have you all and the public and the parents of high school students and high school students-to-be been kept in the dark? And then what can be done about that? With a little digging, and I've been doing some digging and some talking this week, I came across from the Florida Department of Transportation, a headline in the Wakulla News in the year 2007, and it said, "Dozens concerned about Highway 98 plan." And since then, no big public review announced has occurred. At the same time this headline came out, then Citizen Moore was writing DOT and asking that the intersection go through his property. And he said that then Commissioner Ed Bremner had used his politics as his political clout as a county commissioner to get it to go through Jack Crum Road. But people liked the idea of Jack Crum Road, and that commission said, let's do it through Jack Crum Road. But Mr. Moore kept lobbying for it to go through his property. In 2010, this high school intersection plan came up for a contract plan, and on the plan it said that the Wakulla School Board should approve this. Do you know if the school board approved it? Do you know anything about that? And if not, why has this commission and the public been kept in the dark? In 2012, the county administrator wrote a letter to the Department of Transportation saying that we, Wakulla County, were requesting that this intersection be put on the books and be funded. You didn't know about it, and the people didn't know about it, and the question is, why were you kept in the dark? And then a couple of weeks later, Mr. Merritt at the CRTPA meeting made a motion to put that intersection, the high school intersection, on the TSM. Did he inform you? Not according to the minutes of these meetings in 2012. So why were you kept in the dark? In 2013, in September, a DOT representative sent an email to the county administrator saying that the 1998 intersection was at the tippy-top #1 priority. That was straightened out, but why were you kept in the dark? And then in February this year, in 2014, Mr. Merritt sat mum. It is up to you to take a stand on this for the public and the
Appreciate it, Ms.
people.
Mayor. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sue Damon.
Sue Damon. I am very disappointed that DOT would pay $885,000 for 1.895 acres of land that belonged to Mr. Moore. 2 months ago, 1.02 acres with an office building sold for $45,000 just a half a mile west of the subject property. So why is there such a huge difference for Moore's 1.89 acres? The first 3 land sales used in the DOT appraisal were properties bought for Zaxby's, AutoZone, and Burger King. These 3 properties were in a service area where you could find facilities for highway travelers such as shops, cafes, toilets, etc. Mr. Moore's property is not even close to being in the service area. In September of 12, Sheriff Crum, Mr. Edwards, and Superintendent Miller wrote letters to DOT 3 days apart, requesting that DOT reconstruct Highway 319 and Highway 98 in Crawfordville so traffic could be diverted through Mr. Moore's property to a T at the high school for safety reasons. No one ever suggested placing a traffic light in this spot, or if it was dangerous to kids, they didn't consider that. According to the property appraiser's website, the same day that Sheriff Crum wrote his letter to DOT, Mr. Moore sold 2.96 acres of this parcel to Joe Rock LLC for $995,000. Coincidence? In August of 13, Mr. Moore sold another small portion of his property to Mr. Walden for $475,000, thereby increasing the comp value of Mr. Moore's property. Both mortgages are recorded, but they do not state the terms of the contract. Could it be that Commissioner Moore deeded, quitclaimed, and sold bits and pieces of his property to increase the land value? DOT used the adjoining properties, the 2.96 acres that sold for $995,000, and the one that sold for $475,000 that Moore once owned, as comparables to come up with the value of this land. I think there's something really wrong going on here. As a taxpayer, I feel ripped off. Someone needs to answer why in Crawfordville, Florida, the state can spend so much on such a little piece of property owned by a sitting realtor, county commissioner. Was the state deceived on the value of this land? Was the appraiser qualified? or with something else going on. And there is no regard for the safety of our children. More money, and that's M-O-O-R-E, money. Is that what this is all about? How much more can Jerry Moore make off the backs of the honest and decent people in this county and in this state?
Our next citizen is David Damon.
Yeah, it was 900,000, by the way. You're welcome. I want to talk about safety. This whole idea just doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody take, this is from DOT, why would anybody take 11,700 vehicles a day that currently bypass Wakulla High School on 319 and reroute those 11,700 additional vehicles per day to a new intersection in front of Wakulla High? What possible logic would there be that you would take 11,700 vehicles per day, add that to the 4,000 vehicles per day already going down 98, that's 15,700 vehicles per day mixed with buses and student drivers. What traffic study would support this plan? It's safe to say that none would. So where's the traffic study, we ask? CRTPA Harry Reid says, I have not seen a recent traffic study for this intersection. I will check with the FDOT district office to see if one has been done. DOT Aaron Oliver says they did not perform a study with regard to the realignment. In other words, DOT pays $885,520 taxpayer dollars to Commissioner Moore without the first traffic safety study. Then on September, going back a little bit, on September 11th, 2012, a letter from County Administrator David Edwards to Harry Reid and to Tommy Barfield of DOT on behalf, I quote, on behalf of Wakulla County, he urges the state to move forward on the 31998 realignment due to safety concerns. Once again, Edwards had no data to back up his claims. On September the 10th, outgoing Sheriff Donnie Crum also writes a letter with similar safety concerns. Again, no data to substantiate the concerns. The same thing with David Miller, School Board Superintendent. Then, on September 9, 2012, Commissioner Moore begins selling parcels. That would be the first one at the south corner for $900,000. It appears that certain officials were very busy between September the 9th and September the 12th, 2012. Note that current School Board Superintendent Bobby Pierce nor Sheriff Charlie Krill have given their support for this project and would like to see a traffic safety study. They are now aware that none exists. The public has been kept in the dark throughout these negotiations. Not a single traffic study has been done. Taxpayers and parents should be outraged. It's no wonder there are no public hearings. Citizens elsewhere may count on government in the sunshine in order to stay informed, but not here in Wakulla County. Those individuals responsible for this completely worthless project are endangering our kids and wasting our money. This is a complete failure of the system, and this realignment project needs to be stopped. The entire 31998 realignment project should be thoroughly investigated, and officials at every level of government should be held accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all the citizens to be heard we have in the first section. We're going to move ahead with our. We don't have any public hearing items this meeting. Excuse me. What were you wanting?
It was on the first. I think it was on the first.
Ma'am, are you wanting to speak at the first? Okay, I'll go and let you speak, and just if you get done, just please fill out a card. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Debbie Danton. I'm a resident of Tallahassee, 506 Frank Shaw Road, Tallahassee, Florida. I'm here because I'm talking about the intersection of Coastal Highway and Crawfordville Highway. I saw it was on the agenda. I've lived in Tallahassee for 26 years. I travel through this intersection all the time, going to the coast, going to Wakulla High School, sporting events, going to Cross Creek, and more recently I worked on Wakulla Environmental Institute, and I did look operationally at the existing intersection on behalf of them. And so I'm here, I'm a professional engineer. I specialize in traffic engineering and transportation services and operations. And I started off by calling DOT and saying I really wanted a copy of their plan of the intersection as well as any previous traffic studies that were done and any intersection alternatives that they had looked at. And what they informed me is that the intersection started under design way back in 2005. They didn't know if there were any traffic studies back then. They'd have to get back with me. And so they did forward a copy of the plan. They told me the project had been placed on hold for funding reasons, but was back on the boards. And so they since forwarded me traffic forecasts that were conducted back in 2005, traffic counts, as well as a traffic signal warrant study at the current location. So the signal is shown to be justified and warranted at the current location based on delay and traffic volumes. And so I started looking real closely at that and realized, it doesn't include the alignment at Wakulla High School. So I went down and looked at the intersection myself and noticed, there were nearly 30 buses turning in and out of the site during the morning and afternoon, as well as nearly 30 students running mid-block, running, most walking, some running across the street, which was very concerning for me. So when we're looking at putting a signal, and this is, I've been doing these studies for local governments, DOT, school boards, and various private entities for 26 years in the Florida Panhandle. So when I start looking at the safety aspects, I feel that this intersection, as proposed with the current signal at the high school, not only serves to help improve safety at the existing intersection, but also helps improve safety for the school. And some of the things, real briefly, that we look at, when you decide that a signal is warranted, you start doing things like correcting a Y intersection to make it intersect at a 90-degree angle, which means you have to realign the intersection. You look at trying to align the signal with either a major road or a major driveway so that it could serve more of the traffic. You look at heavy traffic vehicles such as trucks or buses, as in the case of the Wakulla School, and you also look at pedestrian safety. So in my opinion, it's an improvement for both locations.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our citizens to be heard for the first section. On this meeting, we don't have any scheduled public hearing items. Next, we're going to have awards and presentations. Our first presentation is going to be by Mr. Brian Polk of DOT regarding the update of U.S. Highway 319 and the U.S. Highway 98 project and the corridor.
Wakulla County.
Thank you, sir. Chairman, Commissioners, what I'd like to do is just give a brief overview of the PD&E reevaluation for the entire corridor, including the two sections in Leon County that are still in need of four-laning. And then I'll update you on the individual projects starting in the south and move north through Wakulla County. The original PD&E in this corridor was conducted began back in 1994. So that study was completed in the late 90s. In 2004, we initiated another update of the PD&E. That update broke the corridor into three projects throughout Wakulla County. In this latest update, we're looking at breaking it up into 5 segments. We're making some smaller segments that will allow us to be able to afford the right-of-way and construction costs so we can get the ball rolling on the multi-laning of 319. This study, along with it being a PD&E reeval, is also a corridor study, which will be looking at the 4 remaining intersections that were priorities for Wakulla County that were provided through the CRTPA, Bloxham Cutoff, Ivan Church Road North, Wakulla Aaron Road, and MLK Memorial Highway are all being studied for interim improvements. The multi-laning will take many, many years, and we know Wakulla County is looking to make improvements at these intersections. Well, upon completion of this study, we'll have what's needed at these key intersections, to improve and facilitate the traffic flow. For that effort, we will have a public meeting tentatively scheduled June 2014 here in Wakulla County for public outreach. Were there any questions on
Repeat that date.
June 2014, tentative?
Brian, this is going to look at, Brian, I'm sorry, you said you had any questions, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
This is going to look at trying to see what we can do with the existing right-of-way in some areas, or just going through and reevaluating environmental impacts, utilities?
It's doing both. We're going to update the PD&E based on the new design permitting requirements, but in addition, we're going to look at what we can do within the existing right-of-way, including the one-way pair option through Crawfordville, the potential for passing lanes north of Crawfordville. Even there'll be a slight consideration of some reversible lanes. The department does not feel that's a viable alternative, but we didn't want to take anything off the table.
Now, the $8 million that's in the work plan for right-of-way purchasing, is that, it's several years in the future, I think, 2 or 3 years, but how, if you haven't done the reevaluation, how are you going to know what to buy, what right-of-way parcels to buy? Are you going by the old alignment?
The PD&E reeval just basically reassures the Federal Highway Administration that we still meet all of the permitting requirements. We do not anticipate new alignments, new corridors to be studied. If there's no other questions, I'll move to the southernmost segment, the 319 US 98 intersection realignment. Again, the PD&E for this section was completed in the late 90s. Again, reevaluated in 2004. The original design began in 2005, and in 2006 the alignment was changed to the current alignment in front of the high school. Over the 10+ years between the original PD&E and the update, conditions at that roadway changed, and the department felt like the realignment option was the most appropriate improvement at the time. We were able to reach 30% plans, and then our funding run out. In 2008, we picked those plans up again and got almost to 60%, but again, that was the time the revenue bottomed out. We had to stop our efforts. Well, in 2013, we started the design and was able to program sufficient funds to fully fund the design. Now we funded right-of-way and construction for that segment. Right-of-way is programmed over 3 years, 14, 15, and 16, and the construction is programmed in fiscal year 16. And I'll be glad to move on to the next segment or entertain any questions you have at this time.
I believe that, isn't the plan like the either 4 or 6 lane 319 southbound to where it hits 98?
It'd be 4 lane.
It'll be 4 lane. What about 98 itself? Is it going to stay 2 lane?
It'll stay 2 lane. There may be some transition sections there that would be appropriate for that intersection.
So the 4 lane would have a dedicated left and right turn, I assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So this plan, does it include closing the Y intersection that's there now, or is that going to, this new intersection is going to be in addition to that?
We would have to analyze that as we finalize the design. What we don't want to have is a dangerous intersection left, you know, out there. So we may basically close or stub out that intersection.
And you said the current plan was approved in 2006?
The realignment in front of the school was that change was approved in 2006, yes, sir.
Were there any public hearings, or are they required?
The public outreach really comes at a certain phases of our plans development. For this instance, this project will be having a public meeting in late summer, early fall of this year. That's where we'll reach out to the public, provide them the information, and, you know.
So we just haven't reached that normal time frame that would have occurred?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you have any questions.
Well, yeah, I have a lot of questions and I have some comments as well. What made, first of all, Mr. Polk, thank you for coming to our board meeting. I don't know how you found out that we met on Monday nights, but thank you for being here. And your role in the FDOT is what?
I work in the planning department.
Okay. And So I met with FDOT, whoever FDOT is, I don't have the names, up in Tallahassee, probably some 4 years plus ago, maybe longer, when that design had already changed to bring the traffic in front of the high school. So you said there were things that changed in the traffic flows or whatever. What were the changes that you, as DOT, thought that you needed to move that traffic in front of the high school?
Well, I'm not familiar with the study, occurred in '94, but I would assume the majority of the changes were related to traffic volume and the increasing danger or safety issue at the existing alignment.
Of the alignment or with our students at the high school?
No, at the current alignment of
Okay.
98 and 319.
But, well, I'll get into some of those questions. When I was up, and I came there with the county administrator and one or two other county people, there was a room probably with 10 or so people around the table, and I asked why is FDOT wanting to take this traffic that now bypasses the high school and move it directly in front of the high school property. And I was told at that time that it had nothing to do with the safety of moving it one way or another. It had to do with dealing with one property owner who had offered to donate his property so that the right-of-way would go through his property. That's what I was told. Do you have any awareness of that kind of
I did not
situation?
attend that meeting, so I can't speak
Okay.
to that.
Well, that's what I was told, and that's what other people around the table heard. How did this intersection, we as a county commissioner had prioritized the traffic problems and intersections in Wakulla County as being from Crawfordville north. That's where we were jamming up. The commute was getting jammed up from Crawfordville up to Tallahassee. And that's where we put our efforts in trying to have those intersections improved. So we prioritized 4 intersections starting from Crawfordville and moving north. How did FDOT decide that this most southern, least traffic impaired intersection deserved to leapfrog all the others?
Well, just as a point of clarification, the funds used for this are not for intersection improvements. These are capacity dollars for multi-laning, widening, improving traffic flow on a much larger scale. The 4 intersections you referenced, we have one intersection. We have a construction project scheduled, I believe, for fiscal year 16 for Wakulla-Aaron Road, but the remaining intersections lack a study. Wakulla County did prioritize those intersections, but did not provide any type of proposed improvement. The department then incorporated in the PD&E reeval and corridor study the cost to study the individual intersections and determine what interim improvements are necessary. At this point in time, we don't know what's needed at those 4 intersections.
Okay, forgive my lack of knowledge, but we as a county commissioner say here are the 4 intersections that we consider the most in need of improvement. I don't think you're telling me that we have to come up with the solution of how to fix those intersections. That seems like above the pay grade of this county commission. That is why I think we have you and the others at FDOT to come up with solutions to problems that we've identified.
And we're glad to do that, and we're underway with that. But we had money in particular fiscal years dedicated to capacity improvements, and the Crawfordville Highway corridor was chosen. These segments were the ones that were in our financial range, needed the improvement, and we moved forward. As soon as the corridor study is complete, we will put forth those improvements back to Harry Reid and the CRTPA, and they can compete for the Transportation Systems Management, or TSM, funds that are allocated for such improvements.
Were you aware that there was an individual that offered to donate his land for the right-of-way?
I had no direct knowledge of right-of-way acquisition purchases or
Okay.
anything
Well,
along those lines.
There actually was, and that's documented, and it was talked about at the meeting that I attended in Tallahassee. It's documented in, as well in writing. So, am I hearing you to say that there was a safety study done at 319 and 98?
There was an intersection analysis completed at that intersection to determine what type of improvement would be best suited. Upon completion of that study, our Traffic Operations Department did indicate that it did qualify for possible signalization, and if we were not pursuing the multi-laning of the southern part of the Crawford Highway corridor, we may have signalized that intersection. But since we're pursuing the realignment, we're going to put the signal there as part of the bigger improvement.
So you said your job involves planning, and we heard from another engineer from Tallahassee who also identified her expertise in planning. Can you explain to me and to the people of Wakulla County why, because it seems intuitively just contrary, how is it that, could we put a map, one of those maps up there? We can start off with that one. Well, that's good. We can start off with that one. Either one would work, but we'll go there. The purple line going off to the left, this is, I believe, from FDOT. The purple line going up to the left is 319 coming out of the Medard intersection. It shows 11,700 trips on it. The right-hand side of that upper V shows 4,000 trips on it. It's not to scale, but let's pretend that the green dot is there. It may be. It represents the high school. Okay, let's just pretend for a moment that it does represent the high school. How is it that taking, and you said the signalization should be there, well, now that the intersection is going to be at the high school, we'll put a traffic light there. Traffic light can be at the high school without moving 1,700 additional trips there, but how is it that it's safer to move 11,700 additional trips that don't go in front of our high school now, in front of our high school? How is that safer?
Well, if you construct and develop a appropriate intersection with a signal timing, that realignment increases the safety. You have protected movements in every direction.
You could have protected you could have a roundabout where our intersection is right now and have protected movements and still have a signal light at the school if you wanted to. Wouldn't that be a lot safer than putting 11,700 trips right in front of the school?
Well, the department done their due diligence in analyzing this intersection and feels and has PE standing behind what we're putting forward here.
Okay, thank you. I have several more questions. But I just want to be clear that the FDOT determined safety as a factor with regard to moving that intersection in front of the high school.
The movement of the intersection from its current location to the high school does improve the safety.
But did FDOT look at safety issues before making that determination?
Safety is a component of any and all plans we develop.
Okay, and why was it looked upon maybe as less safe to move it to Jack Crum Road or to do a roundabout where the existing intersection now exists?
Well, the Department of Transportation, at the time this study was completed, we did not do an analysis of roundabouts at the intersection of two state highways. That was not the policy or procedure at the time.
Okay. And what would be FDO's thinking of not utilizing the alignment of 319 and 98 as being...
The existing alignment?
No, moving that intersection to the west a small amount as compared to moving it to the east a large amount and going and basically teeing it into the high school as opposed to allowing 319 to have the option of...
I think the reasoning behind that related to the fact to increase the safety for the school entering and exiting during both peak hours and regular times. We needed that intersection there because if you signalize the intersection close to Jack Crum Road, you are then too close to put another signalized intersection there at the high school. You can't have two signalized intersections that close.
You couldn't have them timed to...
No, sir, that would not function.
So, but you could have one signal at the high school right now and a roundabout at MedArt.
At this point in time, the Department of Transportation has ruled out a roundabout at that location.
Okay. Let's move to the other map for a second. Can we blow up that little bit down over there? Again, you know, I am not an engineer. Intuitively, it seems totally wrong to redirect the great majority of traffic to the high school. Could you take that bottom triangle piece and put it in the center of the screen, if you could? The opposite way, I guess. And can you blow that up a little more also? Okay. And lift the whole thing up if you could, Paige. I'm sorry. Won't let you do it. Okay. Well, okay. Well, now we're looking down at the lowest part of the screen, and we see 319 coming in a straight line, and in this very short little segment, it's going to dogleg to make it into the front of the high school property. It seems like there'd be less of a curve if you did alternatives in the alignment with Jack Crum. There'd be less of a dog leg if there would. That's okay. Oh yeah, okay. Let me just try that for a second so that I could. Which one? The big one. Okay, I got you. So what I'm talking about is right here. So 319 is coming down, makes this dog leg. Doesn't seem like curves are very good things in traffic flows when you don't need a curve. But again, I guess what's troubling me now, if FDOT has said this is the way things should be done, the no safety traffic study has been done, and there possibly are significantly better options, one of which being a roundabout, and the safety of our children may be at stake here, and lives of our children may be at stake here, it's beyond me to understand why FDOT wouldn't look at that. And anyway, again, that's coming from a layman's perspective.
Can I ask a question real quick?
No, not yet. Not yet. Let me finish this, or else I'll forget who I am.
Okay.
Okay. And when you said that safety is taken into part of this, when and that there was an indication that a traffic light should be there. How is that determined?
Several components, volume of traffic, number of accidents, type of accidents. You do an analysis to see if, for instance, a light would have, prevented any of the accidents that occurred there. Traffic speed is also another component.
And I think I heard Commissioner Thomas or one of the commissioners ask you if you had met publicly with the citizens. I'll ask you if you have done that again, and have you met with the board to discuss this realignment? Because this is a big deal for our county. I don't know many communities in our country who willingly embrace directing more traffic in front of their school. I'm not aware of that going on in our country. Most parents don't want traffic in front of their high school.
Not since we've picked the design up in 2013. We've not had a public meeting. We've had our project managers, district management has gone out and discussed with various people, but we've not had a public meeting at this point.
And again, the decision to do this is based on safety or based on what to do this realignment?
The Department of Transportation was looking to widen this entire corridor from US 98 to where it's 4-lane in Leon County. In order to do this, we were looking at 4-laning this section and considering the 4-lane option with the existing alignment. The realignment to the school was the preferred alternative.
And this was the intersection with all the combination of things, safety, traffic flow. Are you aware of major problems at this intersection?
The current alignment?
Yes.
There's an existing safety issue there.
Well, how is that determined?
As I mentioned before, traffic volume, speed, accident history.
Have you clocked accidents, injuries,
I have
life?
not. I have not, but our traffic operations department did complete a study.
So I'd like to be able to see that, please.
Any of these documents can be requested as far as a public records request.
I'm requesting. But when do you think that study was done?
I would not know.
And to your knowledge, did the Wakulla School Board or the Wakulla Board of County Commissioners ever approve this proposed 31998 realignment?
Secretary Barfield, the district secretary for the 3rd District, he had met with several individuals with the Sheriff's Department, School Board, and with the county that all had favorable responses. I was not privy to any of those meetings, so I can't say anything beyond that.
I think I can speak for the county commission that, to my knowledge, we as previous boards as well, did not petition for this realignment. And again, this is such a large change and impact in our county that it just seems difficult to appreciate to do this realignment without having the citizens' input. What do you expect the citizens to give you input now if you're saying the FDOT is going to go ahead with this project, they're going to do it, and so what good is citizen input at this point in time? You've already made the decision for the citizens.
Well, we haven't made a final decision. The alignment chosen is the final decision, but within that corridor, within that alignment, there can be accommodations made.
I guess I'm not understanding. What does that mean?
Okay, you've got the alignment into the school.
Yes.
Well, we can accommodate modifications, within that existing corridor. But no, we're not going to look at another, entire corridor.
Is there a way that FDOT can do an analysis that says, here's the probability of accidents happening at moving 11,700 more trips in front of our high school with a great intersection plan as opposed to having a great intersection plan where it is now or further to the west, and what would be the outcome of that? In other words, comparing the two things, not just saying we're moving it here and that's what we're going to do. Do you have the ability to, with your software and things, to project how many more accidents you would figure to take place in front of that high school had you just made an improved intersection where it is now?
I don't think we have software that can calculate a guesstimate along those lines, but the development and adoption of the preliminary development and environmental study, the PD&E study, is that very concept you're discussing. We looked at all alternative alignments, and this was the best one.
And that's the study that you're not clear on what year it was done, but you're...
It was done in 1994. It was updated in 2004, and it's currently under a reevaluation now.
So it's an evaluation that's 10 years old, at the best?
Yes.
Right, okay. And then, I guess the other question I had, because I try to, and that's another thing. I mean, I went up to Tallahassee and I voiced objections and I voiced...
You referenced an up to Tallahassee. Would you mind telling me where that was at? Because our office is in Chipley.
Yeah, I don't think we went to Chipley.
Okay.
I think we were in Tallahassee. The people may have come to Tallahassee, but we were up in Tallahassee. That's, I think.
Okay.
I can go and check that and I can get back with you on that. Because it should be somewhere in our county records. But, so, were there many people advocating for this realignment? I mean, I was advocating against it. I don't know why it didn't raise eyebrows, you know, to have a meeting at the time. I think I was chairman at the time when I had that meeting, okay? So I'm voicing concern, and I'm voicing safety concerns at that time. FDOT apparently continues to go along. I'm watching whatever documents I can watch to see where this project is when it's going to pop up for construction, and I don't see it. I don't see it budgeted. I don't see it until almost like now when it's upon us, and all this money comes cascading in. How does that happen? How does...
The Department of Transportation has a letting process. When we let projects to construction, those bid savings are accumulated and in turn reutilized on various projects. And as we save money when we let a project to construction, we take those funds and apply it to another project. Well, as we bring projects in, that opens up funding in outer years, and that's how this project got pulled forward. District 3 had the ability to fund a north-south corridor, and Secretary Barfield, knowing how long this project has been on the books and how bad Wakulla County needed this improvement, this is where he decided to put the funds.
I don't think Wakulla County was asking for this improvement. I think Wakulla County was asking for Wakulla County was asking for 5 things. I'll go back to 5 things, but they're not the 5 things that you have up there. Wakulla County was asking for the 4 intersection improvements, and they were asking for 4 laning of 319. Those are the 5 things Wakulla County asked for. I just don't understand how it gets twisted around that when all of our emphasis is to the north from Crawfordville, that the first intersection that's going to be redesigned and reconstructed is going to be this furthest south and may endanger our students. But that's the last question I had. Thank you very much.
I think Commissioner Merritt had a question he wanted to ask.
Does your staff in Chipley have any engineers with any expertise at all in traffic safety?
We have an entire department with PEs for traffic safety.
Do you think that this intersection is going to make the high school kids more safe or less safe?
More safe by
Thank you,
far.
sir. Thank you.
I think Commissioner Thomas, you had a question.
Just want to clarify that I understood. You said that there were capacity studies and there were safety studies that have been done as part of this process?
As part of a multi-lane improvement, safety is a very top priority. We're not going to design a project that's not safe. We're not going to put forth a preferred alternative that's not safe. So in our day-to-day development of plans, safety is a top priority. And was an individual safety study done that stands alone? No. It's incorporated into the development of the plans.
And you said that a roundabout that option was eliminated. That's not considered a good viable option at this intersection.
Yes, sir. Our engineers at the department felt that, the signalization as it's proposed is the best improvement.
And let's just say, I heard Commissioner Kessler mention this, but let's just say if a roundabout was considered, could you put a roundabout there and also put a traffic light in front of the high school, which I'm guessing is, maybe a tenth of a mile from where the roundabout would be?
I'm not a traffic engineer, but, that's definitely a question we can take back and put forward to our management and our designers.
Okay. Did I hear you say properly that the money that you're spending on this intersection could not be used on our other 4 intersections?
Yes, we're using it on an intersection realignment, but it's really a component of the 4-laning project. If the funds were not spent on this project, it would go to the next capacity need in the district. So these are funds for multi-lane projects, not intersection, just strictly intersection improvements.
Are you aware if there's another capacity need that's identified that could use those funds in Wakulla County, or it would just be elsewhere?
It would be the 319 corridor.
Okay.
And this is the only project with the funding we had available that matched up with the improvements.
Can you explain to me how the process works, the public input process that's coming up, when it would be scheduled approximately, and where that would happen, and what is the role? What will the public be allowed to do and at that meeting?
We will have that meeting scheduled for late summer, early fall of 2014. We will notice it in the paper. We will provide the county administrator the information to provide it to the commissioners. The public can come out and speak directly to our project management team, the designers. They can put forth comments and concerns, again, within the existing alignment. That's the one we've chosen. They can point out any questions, concerns, or comments they have about the existing alignment.
Is it like here, they'll be limited to 3 minutes, or how?
No, sir. We usually try to do an open forum setting. We find that that's more comfortable for citizens to come up and talk to us versus getting up in front of a crowd. That way we'll have multiple project managers there able to answer their questions.
And depending upon the output or whatever comes in from the citizen input and maybe new discovery that happens between now and then, will that citizen input make a difference? Is it possible that something could come out that could stop this project completely, or is that just a formality, the citizen input?
If there's a demonstrated safety concern that somehow we've overlooked, we would definitely take that into account.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just like to thank you for coming down and speaking to
Okay.
us tonight. I think you've answered a lot of questions, and I appreciate your time.
Well, and just real quick, I won't go through them all. I'll just.
Do you want the rest of them?
I'll
Okay. Thank you, sir. I just go and continue.
No, I'll make this brief.
We'll be out of here by midnight.
And then we're going to pick up from Alaska Way up to Lost Creek for the 4-laning. The section from Lost Creek to East Ivan Road, that's through the downtown area. We are looking at the one-way pair options there.
You go just briefly tell people what the one-way pair is. It's from south of here, right,
Yes, sir.
to about where Ace Hardware is, roughly in that area?
Yes, sir. It comes from your town plan. It's what we're taking that from.
And it's utilizing that, what is it, Clotney Street there, as one of the...
And as soon as we have that study complete, we'll be looking to program right-of-way funds and design funds on that. And the final 2 segments going from East Ivan to Bloxham Cutoff and then Bloxham Cutoff to Leon County line. As I mentioned, we do have right-of-way programmed currently for those sections. And Secretary Barfield did want me to pass along that, he understands the importance of this corridor, and as money and revenues become available, he's very proactive in trying to get this corridor improved.
Now, Tommy, we appreciate that.
Thank you. We do appreciate y'all have really stepped up to the plate and sent us some funds to, you put it in the plan now, and we appreciate
Yeah,
that.
well, these were on the shelf for way too long, so we're ready to move forward on them.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is going to be Mr. Ezron McDaniels, speaking on updating regarding our SHIP program.
Chairman Harden, fellow commissioners, good evening. I will be brief. What what should be disseminated to you in just a few moments is just a general update on where we are with the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program. These are trust fund dollars that are funded through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, specifically for housing. I want to draw your attention to that date that's in the first bullet there. That should be November 14th, 2013, so it should not be February 20th, 2014. We did publish an ad in the Wakulla News on November 14, 2013, advertising $498,000 to be used for owner-occupied rehab and down payment assistance. The cycle opened on that date, November 14th, and closed on December the 18th. We received approximately 38 applications, 18 submitted for owner-occupied rehab, and 20 for down payment assistance. We have evaluated those applications that were submitted. We want to let you know that most of the applications that were submitted, they did have deficient information. It did require us to do extensive follow-up with the citizens to collect the information necessary to fully qualify them. I want to draw your attention to the criterion that the county approved in its local housing assistance plan. Most of these dollars, about 95% of the dollars, went to households that were either disabled or elderly, single-parent households, and then the last criterion was the lower income. The reason you approved this in your plan a couple years ago was that you did not want the elderly competing with those that were well and able with submitting the application. And so this was not a submit your application. If you submitted it first, then you got funded. So we did pay special attention to those that were disabled and elderly. The 9 applications that you see there, I believe 8 of them are either disabled and elderly or disabled or elderly. Okay, and so we are in the process of doing the title searches on all of them. You've added a special component in your plan that if there's a lien running in favor with the county or a judgment, that needs to be cleared prior to being fully assisted. Just wanted to give you an update on that. There was an invitation to bid 2014-06 issued on February 20th, 2014. The bids are due from general contractors on March 13th, 2014, and we will bring the recommendations back to the board on at the March 17th meeting. And this is for informational purposes only, and I will entertain any questions you may have.
On these ones that you've got listed, these 9, where it's got over here now, is that rehabbing the house that they're in, or they're going to get a new house?
No. If you look at the first chart there, that's owner-occupied rehab. They have to own their property. So the 9 that you have there, they currently own their property. The 2 that you see below, those are the ones that are seeking to buy their first home. And so those are the ones that have solicited funds for down payment and closing cost assistance, those 2.
You may be asking, are these tear down and rebuild, or are they all rehabs?
Yes. If you see the maximum ship amount there, out of the 9, I believe 1, 2, 3, 4 actually rehab up to $35,000, and 5 are demolition rebuilds because they are mobile homes.
Okay. The reason I'm asking about that is, you know, is so just because they submit an application and just because they're living in a mobile home, they qualify for?
Not necessarily. We've had to apply all of the criterion that's outlined in the LHAP.
Okay.
And so if they submit it, if that mobile home, the rule of thumb is if it's 51% or more structurally unsound, you have to tear it down. There's no reason that you're going to invest an enormous amount of money in a property that's not going to build in value. And so that's why the recommendation is to demo it and rebuild it. There is a 20-year affordability period on that, meaning that homeowner has to live in that property 20 years. If they choose to sell it, let's say in year 10, then they owe the county back 10 years on that.
Okay.
Could you go over that again, that last thing?
Yes. If it's a demolition rebuild, let's say the property, a contractor is going to build it for $70,000. They're allowed up to $75,000. Now, when that property is built, that homeowner signs a promissory note, and there's a lien placed on the property that runs in favor with the county. Okay, this deferred principal loan is forgiven in equal installments each year over a 20-year period.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, excellent.
Good deal.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ron. Don't go anywhere.
I'm still here.
All right.
Okay, next, we have an announcement from Nanette Watts.
Hey, Nanette.
Hey, Nanette.
I'm sorry to disappoint y'all, but we're here to announce that on March 22nd from 9 to 1, we're having the first of our amnesty days, household amnesty days. We do try to have 2 a year, and it's going to be at Trice Lane. It's being put on by Public Works, Jefferson County, and Keep Wakulla County Beautiful. And just in case y'all was wondering, when Commissioner Merritt had my job, all the county commissioners, including the former county attorney, all came out and worked the amnesty days. So we'd like to carry that on.
We stopped that tradition.
But you will be seeing advertisements in the paper, and we will be announcing it. But these programs is good. We have a lot of requests for these amnesty days, and we get a great turnout from the citizens, and encourage everybody to come.
How about computers this time, Cleve? Y'all taking CRTs?
Yes.
And then just paint and...
The paint, battery, oil. We'll have a whole list of things in the paper. We'll not be taking commercial painters or...
No tires.
No tires, and commercial painters. It's very expensive. I mean, we set aside $20,000 per Amnesty Day event. It's not free. I mean, it's free to our citizens, but it's not free to this county.
Right.
And it takes, we barely make it with $20,000. So what we take in, we have to pay for disposal. And so it's, so we cannot handle commercial accounts. It's strictly for household people, or household products.
No microwaves, though? I know those are hard to get rid of, too.
Let's look on the list. I think we'll take all electronics. All electronics, microwaves.
Ballast, fluorescent light bulbs.
We'll be set up for the ballast.
It's hard to get rid of a TV these days. I mean,
we'll take, but
real hard.
We're getting it set up, and I said there can be an extensive list in the Wakulla News, and we will take the TVs, the microwaves, the electronics.
So where can tires be disposed of?
Take it to Goodwill.
Right now, the landfill.
You can't throw it in the woods, David.
The problem you had with tires, and the reason there's no money to help dispose of them, when you purchase a set of tires, you pay a surcharge on that tire for the people who you buy the tire from to properly dispose it, your old tires.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times that's not done, so that's why it has to. The landfill will take them for a fee, but then there's commercial people in Tallahassee will take them, but it is a fee.
I just noticed Keep Wakulla County Beautiful picked up a bunch of them out of the woods last weekend. So maybe if folks know that they can take it to the landfill, maybe that'll help that problem.
But again, it's strict at the landfill. It's more for the individual homeowners or the individuals, and they support the local sheriff's department, Keep Wakulla Beautiful for cleanup days.
Right.
But I can tell you, tires can get out of hand.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
big time.
There's about an 8-foot flare on top of our old landfill out there.
That's correct. We're chip tires.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the St. Mark's Refuge speaking on St. Mark's Lighthouse Day.
I need a copy of it whenever you have. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Gail Fishman from St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge. I would like to announce that last October in 2013, the U.S. Coast Guard finally transferred ownership of the St. Mark's Lighthouse to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge. And we will be having an official transfer ceremony with dignitaries from both the Coast Guard and the Fish and Wildlife Service on March 28th at the Lighthouse.
Is that what this gentleman is here for in the uniform?
This is Keeper Gordon Perkinson.
All right.
March 28th.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. Victor Lambu to speak on the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance ballot initiative.
Yes, thank you. I'm here, as you know, as the chairman of the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance to honor and express our appreciation to 3 groups of citizens. But before that, I wish to express my personal thanks that I and all of you live in this democracy, a place where citizens that do not agree with the government authority do not fear for their lives, such as happening overseas now in the Ukrainian, where a competing government may enforce their decisions with rifles. We live in a democracy that has checks and balances between elected officials, elected bodies, and our citizens. It is a magic place here in Wakulla County, Florida, USA, where I or our elected officials do not have to fear for their lives or retribution because we have different opinions of what is best for our country. I'm sure everyone knows that our wetland petition drive to get on the ballot at the next general election reached the required magic requirement of signed petitions from 30% of the registered voters in each of our 5 election districts. This was certified by Buddy Wells, our supervisor of elections. When we began this initial drive, so many people told us that it was impossible to get signatures from 30% of the voters. But we did it, and this is because in Wakulla we have lots of smart, honest people that care about what is happening here and who go out of their way to keep themselves informed. But back to my purpose. The first group I wish to honor are the tireless workers that took considerable time away from their personal lives, their recreation, and work to collect 5,550 wetland petitions certified by our supervisor of election. There was no monetary or personal gain to these people, except the great satisfaction of doing what they believed was good for Wakulla County, and I say many, many thanks to them. The second group I wish to express to is our supervisor of election and his staff for accomplishing in a completely unbiased manner and so efficiently their job of reviewing the wetland petitions from us and counting and verifying them. I wish all government agencies would be so efficient and knowledgeable. And again, let me emphasize, they did their job without bias to those for or against the petition drive. To this day, I do not know where Buddy himself stands on the issue, and I'm certain he is not going to tell me, or should he. Third and last, I would like to thank for the WWA all the citizens who informed themselves about the wetland issues and who signed the petitions. I would also like to thank the people, the very small majority of the people that we contacted, who informed themselves and decided they did not want to sign the petitions. But thanks for all of you, and God bless America and our beloved Wakulla County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to piggyback on to those statements of Mr. Lambu. Our supervisor of elections, according to our rules, had 2 months to verify the 5,550 petitions that were turned in. They did it in 2 weeks. Just amazing. A staff of 3 people, and in 2 weeks to accomplish that, I thought was just phenomenal. I also want to thank the many businesses that facilitated the petition drive as well. And I want to make one more comment, and that is this 30% bar, although achievable now, is a very high bar. It took many people 6 months of their lives, some working almost like a full-time job or longer, in order to achieve that goal. That's not the intention, to have a goal that high that requires that amount of work. The intention is to have the voice of the people heard. And although we have accomplished this, it's my opinion again, that, and the opinion of most others, that the 30% bar is too high. Thank you.
We have any other discussion? Okay, thank you. Okay, next we're going to move to our consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we don't have any planning and zoning issues tonight scheduled. Our first order of general business is to request board approval to schedule and advertise a workshop to discuss potential road paving, resurfacing, and striping projects.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we need to discuss a date. We had put down here April 7th, April 10th, or April 21st, but we've gotten the information together a little sooner, so I think we can have something ready for you the next board meeting, which is March 17th at 4 p.m. And what we'll be giving you is based upon recent or past board initiatives, is some alternatives and basically a menu program of roads and combinations thereof to select from, and naturally y'all can veer off from there, but it'll all fit in with our 5-year plan. But anyway, that's the purpose of the workshop, is to go through and determine the paving priorities. The reason we really haven't brought it before sooner is we had so little funds in there, and I was concerned with a couple of things happening that we may end up having to carve some of that money out to do some work on some roads, etc., as well as cover some other things. So that's the reason I kind of waited and made sure the budget played out, and now we're ready to go ahead and do that.
I'll
So-
amend my motion to modify it to your date and time. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, with me.
Are you going to have a list of the roads that past boards have already approved to be paved, like Cooperwood? There's Emily, of course.
We've got more approvals of more roads to pave than Carter's got appeals. What we've tried to do is prioritize those in our 5-year plan, but also based upon the July 2013 board meeting, we were given directions, and part of that will be for Wakulla Gardens. There'll be some
Right,
Wakulla
because
Gardens
most
there.
of the roads, the major roads that really need to be paved don't have right-of-way, like the Cooperwoods, the Ashley, all that stuff.
Yeah, and the problem is we have very limited funds, so it's not like we want to embark in on something huge here. So if we can
Okay.
do that date, that would be great.
Okay, we have an amended motion. Do we have any more discussion? We don't have any citizens speak on this issue. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have, from Louis Cerner, we have one.
This is...
Go
You mean take it, Louis?
Oh, yeah, sure.
ahead, David.
All right, this agenda item requests board consideration and direction regarding the future options concerning the administration of the housing voucher Section 8 program for Wakulla County. Basically, without reading everything, basically what has happened is Meridian has expressed their interest in not renewing their contract in July due to economic reasons that other counties have went to other housing authorities for this service, and therefore it's become economically unfeasible, if that's a word.
Make a motion to direct staff to pursue a transfer of the program to the Tallahassee Housing Authority.
I second.
Thank you.
We have a motion made and seconded. Do we have any more discussion amongst commissioners?
All read the agenda.
Yes. So we've looked at the option of potentially keeping this in-house, and it was not viable.
Not with the $5,300 a month.
And again, part of this impact comes from that sequester word,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
which
sir.
basically
Yes, sir.
lowered the amount of monies that, if they had been there, we possibly would have had that as an option to keep
It would
in-house.
have been possible, but based upon our last cleanup of everything, we'd have to take a serious hard look at that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, this agenda item requests board to adopt a resolution. Let's see, hold on. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the resolution for the fair market rents as payment standards of the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Second.
We have a choice in this one.
We have a motion made and seconded. We don't have any citizens speak on this issue. Do we have any other discussion amongst commissioners?
I'd like to say that we've set the threshold as low as we can, which is 90% of the rate. If we could go lower, I'd go lower to spread the money out, but we can't go any lower. And we are being told by the federal government what the fair market rate is. So, we've done all we can do.
I think it's about as fair as it can get at this
It's
point.
as fair as it can get.
It's as low as we can get.
Okay. All in favor for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Good night, Ezron.
Okay, motion passes.
Thanks, Ezra.
Okay, item number 19. This agenda item requests board consideration and approval of legal services for Wakulla Charter Review Commission. This agenda item, what we're requesting is that we set, number one, this will set a budget for legal and consulting services at $5,400 a year for the Charter Review Commission to utilize between now and the end of this fiscal year. What that turns out to be is at $225 an hour, which seemed to be the overwhelming majority of the hourly.
I'd like to make a motion to table this, and the reason for that is I think that we should allow the Charter Review Committee to meet, have their organizational meetings, have them set up a schedule of meetings that they anticipate and possibly needs that they anticipate so that we can better address this issue.
Any issue with that? I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. We have two citizens to speak on this item. First citizen is John Shuff.
Yeah, I was reading the motion and saw there were two attorneys were being delegated to the task, and I don't know if that means two attorneys or and two assistants,
Just one.
depending on which, who could go make it to the meeting. I think we'll probably be able to set our meetings far enough out in advance to where they should be able to make the meetings, and it seems that if you have two attorneys, I mean, that's what was said in the agenda, was two attorneys. If you have two attorneys, and you've got to transfer knowledge between them, and there's a cost with that, and I certainly would like to see us stay within our $5,400 budget.
Okay, we have our next citizen, Hugh Taylor.
What was that hourly rate again?
Randy, you've been mean. Hers is higher.
How about in-house for nothing? I have some more questions than comments, although that was going to be a comment. When I was on the Wetlands Committee, I thought Bethany did a wonderful job. It was with your firm. I want to know if what reasons there would be, Mr. Chairman, for farming this out. I think there was some concern before with the TDC that there might be some conflict, where they had to get their own attorney. From what I read, you're still going to review, the county attorney is going to review what the Charter Commission does. And the other point would be, there you go. Welcome to Geezersville, right? The other point is basically, I think, I think Heather's firm was the reason it's being farmed out, basically. Heather's firm has experience, has a good litigator, and has a pretty good basis in the Sunshine Law, which when you get 15 people on a committee or however many there are, there's all kinds of issues. And the other thing would be who's presenting the Sunshine and Public Records Law to the committee. So why not keep it in-house? And I don't know if there would be an additional cost. I don't know what the cost was for the Wetlands Committee, but every issue that there was an attorney at every meeting, and there was consistency. When extra help was needed, it came from the same firm, et cetera, et cetera. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Those are the only two citizens we had to speak. We have a motion and a second to table
Can
this
you
item.
repeat the motion?
Table it.
The motion was to table this item.
And what was the basis to allow them to decide?
To allow them to, well, in part, to first have their organization meetings and set a schedule of meetings that they would be having, and also have them discuss what needs other than attorneys they might be anticipating so that we can address this all at once.
David, are you just assuming how many meetings they're going to have?
Yeah, I backed into, we assumed about we figured about 6 meetings would need some type of legal representation. That doesn't mean you got to have an attorney every single meeting, but just assumed that 6 meetings you would need that legal representation. But like I say, that's all according to this committee and how rambunctious they want to get with, you know what I mean? That could be a lower number or it could be a higher number. So
That's why Howard wanted to wait to see how many meetings they really were going to have.
well, they don't even really know.
They're required to have a certain amount of meetings.
Yeah, they're required to have a certain amount.
I'm not a, yeah, 2 is what I think what it's charged. I mean, I could go along, I'm not opposed to it, but their first meeting is this week. If we approve this tonight, will the selected law firm attend the meeting this week, that soon?
I had not planned on that, no, sir.
So it really is not gonna matter either way.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go along with that.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, on this next item, our commissioner agenda item, first agenda item's Commissioner Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This agenda item requests the board to vote to schedule a workshop to discuss the safety concerns of the proposed realignment of 319 and 98 intersection. We've heard a considerable amount of input this evening. The intersection of 319 and 98 in MedArt has never been presented to the board by either the FDOT or the CRTPA other than the presentation this evening, listed as one of 5 intersections. We heard in the discussion tonight how the current plan of the FDOT would place all traffic directly in front of Wakulla High School. Under this FDOT plan, to realign the intersection, the 11,700 vehicles per day that previously bypassed Wakulla High School will be redirected to Wakulla High School. And if these 11,700 additional trips are added to the presently occurring 4,000 trips, and these are rough numbers, in front of the Wakulla High School, a total of 15,000 plus vehicle trips per day will pass the high school. The question is, if placing more traffic in front of a high school, even with an improved intersection, we have an intersection that is in place right now where studies have been done on that intersection, and the study says that we need something done about that intersection because of the number of trips there. But in front of the high school, we only have 4,000 trips. So we're basically taking this study that was done of an intersection where it now exists, and we're saying we're going to move it in front of the high school. And the questions that come up is this a better solution than leaving an intersection to the west of the high school? And does this realignment risk or endangered our youth, as citizens, the kids that are in the high school now, the kids that are going to be coming up to the high school? So there are many questions to this, and if these concerns are proven to be true, then the board should not allow such dangers to be introduced in risking the welfare of our future Wakulla High School students. I think we as a board deserve to have an in-depth discussion. The citizens, the parents, need to partake in that discussion, and I think it should take place sooner rather than later. So I make a motion to vote to schedule a workshop in order to discuss the proposed FDOT 319-98 intersection in MedArt by the Wakulla High School.
I will have to recluse myself because I could possibly have an interest in that.
Okay, if we don't have a second to the motion, it's going to die. We've got a motion if we don't have a second. Okay, there's no second, but there are 6 citizens that did fill out speaker cards that would like to give a chance to speak.
They can't.
They can't if there's no second. Okay.
I think that's up to the discretion of the chairman.
I wouldn't go down that road, Richard. There's no motion, there's no second. It's up to you. Otherwise, it's just opening up a Pandora's box.
You know, these 6 citizens, they wanted to speak, so I'm going to allow them to speak. I may not agree with what some of them say, but I'm going to allow these citizens to speak. Our first citizen to speak is Sue Damon.
Well, Mr. Harden, I'm very, very impressed, and thank you for giving the citizens the right to speak. I do want to thank DOT for coming out here. I feel that they don't quite have all the answers. They're doing their best by coming out here tonight. And, you know, Mr. Pock, he didn't seem to have, you know, he's not really that familiar with the study from '94, and then also he said at one time there really aren't any safety studies, and then I feel that we're creating a problem where there isn't one. And when it comes to our kids, you know, most of you are parents, and I would think that I'm really disappointed in you, commissioners, because you didn't second it, and I thank you, Mr. Harden, but God, this is our kids. And to listen to everything Mr. Kessler said, it's true. I mean, we're routing everything right in front of the high school. I just can't even imagine what sane mind would want to do that. I think the idea of the roundabout is something to talk about and think about, and put a light in front of the high school if we need that. Mr. Pock mentioned that he has not even spoken with any of the people that are here in office. I mean, it was Crum, and it was what's his name, Mr. Miller. Nobody that was here in office have they actually spoken to. I think it's sad that DOT moved ahead without contacting the citizens, and that there were still so many questions that are unanswered. Let me see. I understand that they did have the funding available, and they told me that the reason that they purchased Mr. Moore's property is because they had sellers that all agreed at that time. They really wanted to start north on 319, where the traffic is the worst, but they couldn't get all the sellers there to agree to sell. So I know that that's what they wanted to do. But I just, really, guys, let Mr. Moore have his money, and let's just think about the kids, you know? Thank you.
Our next citizen is David Damon.
I want to thank Commissioner Harden for the chance to speak. I know that Commissioner Merritt wants this to go away because of his participation in this. I know that Commissioner Moore wants to see it go away. He got his money, so go to the bank and leave our kids alone. Now, the other 2 of you, I don't know why you won't second this. This is about our kids' safety. You always talk about our kids and safety. You also talk about government waste and government spending. You ought to be all over this. I mean, why you won't second his motion is just beyond me. This truly speaks to your dedication to our kids if you can't second this and allow a workshop over the safety of our kids to happen. Seriously. This says volumes for what you 2 stand for. I don't expect it out of you 2, but you 2, I would hope you would step up and do the right thing. DOT, yeah, it's a bad idea to let the people speak, isn't it, Commissioner Merritt?
Go ahead. Speak your mind.
Well, you're interrupting.
Yes, that's right.
Can you start my time over? Public outreach is what DOT talked about, Mr. Pock, but it's really public outcry for what's happening here. DOT has no studies. He says they've done their due diligence. Seriously? A 10-year-old evaluation is what they're basing this off? And they're going to update it soon. No traffic study. We're shoving 11,700 vehicles a day into our high school. This makes absolutely no sense. If this is about safety, you know better. You know it's not. We know what this is all about. Thank you.
Next citizen, Hugh Taylor.
You're a good boy. Thank you for that. I'm almost 70. Jack Doyle. One of the last times I saw him, he said, "Be a good boy. You're a good boy." Mr. Pock, welcome to Wakulla County.
This thing is eat up with safety and sunshine, shade, sleaze, I don't know what to call it. Mr. Park, Commissioner Kessler, David and Sue, I appreciate your hard concern. I guess I'm supposed to address you, but I really appreciate what the Damons had to say. Sue about 800,000, David about 900,000. Here's your letter. If it would expedite this intersection, I would consider donating the right-of-way to the state. $900,000. What a great way to start a $900,000 conversation. And where's the reporter? Jenny, you here? You lied, or Mr. Snowden lied. In your article about you gave him a year. You gave him forever. Thank you very much. So, I'll see your money and raise you by forever at zero. A gift to establish, get your foot in the door. Toward the end, this is a note from a guy named Wade Herod. Toward the end of the conversation, Mr. Moore said he would even give the property to the district if he had to keep the alignment of the current design location. When I volunteered to work for the TDC for nothing, it was not to get my foot in the door so I could end up making $110,000 a year working for the TDC. And you got, Mr. Puck, I apologize. I really do for them bringing you over here and you as uninformed as you are because you didn't know what you were getting into. And this is what you're getting into. And Commissioner Merritt, shame on you, but you were right. From this moment forward, you have helped us to open that box that is the file on that property that we will look into.
Not what I was talking about.
Please, it's my turn to speak. You get your, you all get your last word.
We'll save ours to the discussion in them.
There you go. Safety. I am so ashamed of you all. Right guy for you, wrong guy for the citizens. You know, wetlands, 30%. Right for sitting commissioners, wrong for the citizens. The wetlands, putting it to a vote. Right for you guys, wrong for the citizen. Well, I think there's lessons in here, and there's lessons in the wetland petition. And that's all I've got to say, because I'm about mad. But Richard, sir, I apologize. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, thank you very, very much for opening the door of that Pandora's box and allowing people like us to peek out. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Dana Peck?
How many more people?
Just two.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. Thank you, Chairman Harden. I think the best government, a lot of people believe that the best government is the inclusive government that opens its doors. I think of Abe Lincoln, who opened his doors to people and let them in to speak their piece, and gosh, if he can take it, I would think the other people here could take it too. But here's the point about being inclusive and the point about having a public hearing on this issue. the Department of Transportation says, well, a couple of weeks ago, it said that they would have a public hearing in April. Now it's late summer or early fall. You know, after everything is really set and the deed is done and maybe the steam has sort of subsided. But if you had a public hearing, you would let people speak now on this issue. You would let them voice their opinions so you could make your decisions now on this issue. It's not going to go away at all. It will live through each month. So I would hear from the people, if I were you, in the spirit of old Abe, because he learned a thing or two when he opened his doors, and you all might learn a thing or two, too. Thank you.
Our next citizen is Bill Russell. Okay, Bill Russell passes. Next citizen's...
Okay, wait a minute, he said...
Okay, Bill Russell wants to speak.
I thought that a workshop on safety and convenience of the commuters would have been a good idea, but nobody wanted a workshop about that, wanted to draw and quarter Jerry Moore. So you did the right thing.
Final speakers, Mike Helms.
Say something after the citizens are done, just one of the items?
Yes.
Gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of Sheriff Creel, the Sheriff's Office concludes that currently the intersection, that's 319 and 98, as we know it, has 6 different lane choices in which to travel. The intersection is controlled only by 2 stop signs and 1 yield sign. Traffic uses this intersection primarily 3 times a day, and I'm referring to school, the crowd that gets out at lunch, and more importantly, the end of school. Children are leaving. They're both driving and riding school buses, which I think warrants a possible change to the existing intersection. I'm down there every day at 2 o'clock to try, to the best of my ability, to slow the kids down. A lot has been said tonight about the vehicular traffic, but no one has said anything about the number of children that are crossing US 98 at the most inopportune time. It is with that we, the Sheriff's Office, and certainly at all times I represent Sheriff Creel, believe that the realignment of US 319 would be a safer environment than what we currently have at this time. Mainly because, yes, we're going to put more traffic in that one spot, but it's going to be controlled. It's going to be controlled by a traffic signal that we do not have at this time. We're also, according to DOT, is going to put crosswalks in so that children can cross in a much safer manner than they do now, because they're crossing all over US 98, and it's only by the grace of God that none of them have been hit. They are using that to go over to the Kangaroo Express. They're using it to walk over to adjacent property because they can't park on school property because of various reasons, to get in their vehicles and scream down 319 with us in tow. I think this is a very good idea as far as the alignment change, and it's all about safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Helms. Or Sergeant Helms, I'm sorry.
I had wanted to say, since we opened up the door here, 2 things. Number one, I guess because I'm on the CRTPA and voted on an agenda item, that contained, amongst other things, this intersection. Jerry Moore and I are now business partners. Jerry, did you give me any money? I don't really remember it.
No.
Huh?
No.
Wow. I mean, that's sure the way it's being portrayed here, that because I voted on an agenda item, me and you are partners, so let's go have lunch sometime. Next item, and Richard, this is really, this no insult whatsoever, but a meeting has to have some order. All the citizens that have talked, the motion Howard made was to have a workshop. When there was no second, the issue was decided. And when I said open Pandora's box, I mean, I have an agenda item next. If it doesn't get a second, please don't let everybody talk about it, because it's a moot point. It's not.
There's not going to be a vote, but I firmly believe in citizens' right to speak. I may not agree on what a citizen says, but I believe in, if he has requested the right to speak and has filled out a card, I believe in giving him that right.
That's completely, I guess, your right as chairman, but we also need to have some sort of rules, and in every board meeting I've ever seen in the last 20 years, there has to be a motion and a second. Otherwise, citizens speak under citizens to be heard, and that's why that's there. But that's your business. But I would.
Mr. Chairman, that's not true. There's been many times where the chairman, under his discretion, has allowed the citizens to speak. He has a discretion not to let them speak, but he also has a discretion to let him, and it has happened.
He had discretion to say nobody can speak on an item, even with a motion and a second?
No, I'm talking about without the second.
I stand corrected. I've never seen that.
Okay. Well,
Okay, we're going to move on to the next agenda item.
I have a comment.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Commissioner Thomas has a comment.
I'd just like to encourage the public. We learned tonight that there will be a public input period, and there will be time to discuss this. There is time for people to voice their concerns. We heard from a representative from the Sheriff's Department, thank you, Sergeant Helms, tonight. You know, I guess folks like to portray that we don't care. We don't care about the wetlands, we don't care about the environment, we don't care about people. Now we don't care about children, and that just can't be any further from the truth. We've got a lot of people in this county that do care about the children, and you know, we've got to trust that the folks are doing their job, and including the state. We've got 5 school board members and the superintendent of schools. That's 6 elected people that they also care about the kids. So, I mean, I guess if you guys are indicting us and saying we don't care about the kids, then that means the entire school system doesn't care about the kids, and the entire sheriff's department doesn't care about the kids. And I just don't believe that. Believe me, I love your passion. I recognize your passion. I appreciate that, but I just don't think that this is a good way to handle this. I think if you have a concern, certainly go to those public meetings. You know, we were promised some information tonight that a lot of us haven't seen, traffic studies and things like that. Definitely dig into that information. But you're not benefiting anyone in our community by continuing to character assassinate us. You know, that doesn't help anyone. So, you know, God bless you in your passion, but I just don't think that's constructive for our community.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Well, and as a point of order, I do want to clarify, you know, that as the chairman, I'm not allowed to make the motion or second a motion. I think a while ago I got lumped into a thing of why didn't I second the motion, but as point of order, chairman, I'm not allowed to make the motion or second. I would like for us to go ahead and move on to the next agenda item.
Apparently,
Commissioner Merritt, and you know, in the discussion at the end, we can further elaborate on it.
I agree.
Richard, if you'll allow me to, I'd like to talk this over a little bit before I make a motion.
Okay.
If it's not going to get a second, it's not going to pass. I'm not going to make a motion. You can still speak, I guess, if you want to. What I'm suggesting is that we apply the variance standard that we have in place now, Heather, that applies to the 45-foot zone, and now let it apply to the whole buffer zone. It's a standard Louis used several times, I think. I don't know, several times, but you know, the minimum building foot, you've already exhausted all your other setback variances, and blah, 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 blah. We can do that now. The comp plan's changed. We couldn't do that 2 or 3 weeks ago. And just for you guys that want all or nothing, all right, to say, well, nope, I want no ordinance whatsoever, all right? Remember, there's a referendum that we know now is on the ballot, and I believe there is some popular sentiment out there. So if we get rid of it altogether, the citizen's choice is going to be no county wetlands protection or this county wetlands protection you're being presented with. And I believe that's going to be a compelling case for some maybe not all, but some people to want to vote for it. If we go along with what I'm suggesting, the citizen's choice is going to be, you want wetlands protection without variance procedures, or do you want wetlands protections with variance procedures? And the one without variance procedures, by the way, can't be changed without a 5-0 vote. That's going to be the new choice. This will resolve 90% of my issues. I still have an issue with us regulating isolated wetlands, but I'm not going to try to mess with that at this time. So, but if there's no support for this, I'll drop it and won't even make a motion.
Well, I will second your motion.
Are you going to vote for it or for discussion?
Well, I don't know if you, do you really have to know that before we discuss it? I mean, can't you just accept that I just said I'm going to second your motion and I will not withdraw my motion like some other people do? I will second it.
Well, okay.
And I will vote for it, okay?
I mean, I said I wanted to discuss it. I mean, do you guys want to ask me any questions about it before I make my motion, or do you want to make any suggestions how you think it might be better, or you just want to say that, to heck with it, we want to get rid of it altogether, and I don't want to waste our time on
Well,
it?
but that goes back now. What we're really supposed to be doing, and I think you've entertained part of that discussion, is we're really supposed to have a motion on the floor.
That's why I asked.
Commissioner Castro, I think, you know, he's already said he's going to second your motion, so if you make a motion, he's going to second it, we'll go before discussion, and then we can discuss it openly amongst commissioners. We have, I have several speaker cards on this as well.
Let me go ahead and make my motion then. I'll make a motion to, I guess, approve to direct staff. What you're actually going to do is advertise an ordinance, the draft ordinance. Draft, you know what I'm reading.
Yeah, and we're not gonna be able to bring it back, obviously, until the comp plan amendment's finalized.
Change the ordinance to allow staff to use the same criteria they do now and have it apply to the entire 75-foot buffer zone. And I also want to add in there that repairs, modifications, or addition to existing structures also be allowed to obtain automatic in-house variances. As long as you're not destroying wetlands, you can get a variance inside that 35-foot zone in-house if it's an existing structure you want to do an addition to or repair it or modify it.
I thought I heard you say something about a 5-0 vote.
No.
Well, that's what I thought I heard you say.
I think he's saying if this doesn't work, it's going to take a 5-0 vote.
If the referendum passes,
to
it'll take a
change.
5-0 vote to change
Well,
the wetlands ordinance.
Well, okay, so here's what I'd like your motion to be, maybe, is that we come back with a workshop that will put out there what exactly we can agree upon as a variance that we want staff to draft.
This is what my motion is. I may not agree with you on the variance. So, no, my motion is going to stand. If you don't want to second it, I understand.
Okay, yeah, I misunderstood you then.
Okay.
Okay, so this dies for lack of a second, but
Oh,
Well, no, he hasn't withdrawn the second yet.
no, you allow further discussion on it.
Nobody else is going to second the motion?
No discussion on it?
well, are you withdrawing your second?
No, I'll leave my second there for discussion.
You might withdraw it later.
I might or might not.
Like some other people.
Like some other people. Well, like some other people don't even second a motion for a workshop, like some other people.
You guys, I assume not going to support that then? And that's fine if you don't, you're not hurting my feelings.
So what exactly are you proposing then? Let me understand. You know, the first 40 feet from the upland is 40 feet now that our planning and zoning can decide what to do with. So it's the 35 feet.
Correct.
That, and you're saying that staff will handle that 35 feet as well?
Yep.
Not the board?
Nope.
Yeah.
But only in the situations where the site is so constrained that there's less than, I can't remember what the number is,
I
buildable
think it would
area.
be easier for me to stick with you on this if I could see what that draft looks like. There's nothing that, unless I missed it, there's nothing that came with this.
It's very simple. The criteria we use
Well, I'd
now
like to, you know,
would
it's
apply.
just like one of the citizens said this evening. It's very simple when you're saying it verbally. When you're writing it down, it could be something else. And one of the citizens said that when we're even agreeing to things that were supposed to be in certain plans, they didn't appear that way when the plan was made up. So I'd like to see the draft before we vote on this.
Well, I'm not going to waste their time, attorneys' time for something that's not gonna pass. And Dr. Kessler, if you're not gonna vote for it, I wish you wouldn't second it. It sounds like you're not.
I thought I was voting it the way I understood it, but apparently I misunderstood. I thought this was coming to the board. Whatever you were going to be recommending was going to be coming to the board, and it had to be unanimous
No.
thing of the board to go and...
I'm saying we establish a procedure to get inside the 35-foot zone.
Well, that's the
It's gonna be a
procedure.
property
That's
taken.
the procedure that I need to see spelled out. I mean, what's so difficult about that? I want to see what we're voting for.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion then.
Well, if, I'm gonna find the, I'm looking on Muni Code right
I'm
now.
withdrawing my motion.
I have it. You have it?
It's not gonna pass anyway.
Would you want us to read what the current
like
procedures
to-
that you have in place?
But I would, yeah, I would like to see it.
Louis, do you wanna read that?
Yes, in reviewing and considering an application for an administrative variance, the planning director should first consider whether a 20% variance to the front, rear, and side property setbacks established for the property under Chapter 5 of the code would provide the applicant with 2,800 square feet of buildable area. If a 20% variance to such setbacks would provide more than 2,800 square feet of buildable area, the planning director may administratively grant such a variance, but may not approve any administrative variance for development within buffer zone 2.
I guess some problems that I have with it, Randy, I want to say is there's two things. One, the 35-foot the 35-foot variance would only come into play if someone couldn't build outside of it, correct? Okay, now this would help someone on small lots, but if someone has acres and that just happen to be bordering or involve isolated wetlands, they're still going to have a large portion of their land that that's going to be in the no-touch zone.
I agree with you 100%.
You know, and I guess that's my biggest hang-up with this is, you know, if someone has a 150-foot lot, this would help this tremendous. There's about 3 or 4 people we've already had come before us that this 35-foot won't let them. It would help a few people initially, but there are some landowners that have large acres that have wetlands on their acres that it would still leave them with no touch zones.
I agree with that.
Even with the variance.
Think about the choices I told you earlier.
Mhm.
Citizens are going to go to a referendum. They're going to vote. We got A, no wetlands protections. B, these very restrictive wetlands protections. If that passes, we're stuck with it, fellas. No matter what Howard thinks or I think, we're stuck with it. And then you can say, I'm going for the gusto, I want it all, or I want nothing. I think, what did Ronald Reagan say? Run off the cliff with your flag flying? I'm trying to give a different choice. We can have wetlands ordinance with variances or wetlands ordinance without it. And at this time, not address any of the other issues, okay?
Okay, and also if we were to move forward and we were to put this in there, and something happens in November and it does pass, which ordinance is being enacted? The one that we would create, or the one that or the one before?
The one that's going to pass, if it passes, the one that we're going to have is the one that doesn't even allow variances in the 45-foot zone without coming before the board, right? Because it has to go back to the original text, the text that says no variances in 35 feet, and only get a variance in 45 feet if it's a taking of your property. That, guys, is not worth the risk to me if that passes.
But we could pass this tonight, and that still pass in
You're
November.
exactly right. You are exactly right. But remember what I said.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 scenarios. You got choice A and B. Choice A is no wetlands protection at all. Choice B is a rigid wetlands protection. I believe there is some sentiment in the county to protect our marshes and our rivers. Most people are not going to read that entire ordinance. I can assure you of that. They're not going to see the little nuances in there about buffer zones and no-touch zones. They're going to say, I like wetlands. Sure, I'll vote for that. And not read it. Not that anybody's not a smarter electorate, but I don't know how many pages that thing is. It's a bunch of legal... It's quite a thick document. Or their choice is going to be, well, we have a wetlands ordinance. In fact, it's going to be the same number, right? It'll be the ordinance, whatever number it is. This one allows variances that the board has today. This one doesn't. I think people are going to say, well, why would you have an ordinance that doesn't even allow you a variance to use your property?
Well, I have another thing that I think it needed to address as well. In the 2006 ordinance, it allowed for grandfathering. And in the 2010 ordinance that we have now, it took the grandfathering out. So even if we were to do the 35-foot even if we was to do the variance, that's strictly for building. But as it's written right now, someone who maintains their property within that, like if they get out and they cut their grass within that 35-foot, technically according to the ordinance, they violate the ordinance every time they cut the grass. So
That's not necessarily true, Mr. Chairman.
That's according as it's literally. If you literally interpret the ordinance, the 35-foot is not supposed to be no vegetation destroyed within a 35-foot. So as it's written right now, if someone cuts their grass, they're basically violating the ordinance every time they cut the grass. So that's some more. It's more than just this one issue.
Right, and if you read another section of that ordinance, it will tell you that if you have been maintaining a property up to the wetlands or whatever, you are permitted to continue to maintain it. So that doesn't give you a violation.
I'm not trying to waffle or give
Right.
in. I'm trying to be politically realistic on a serious referendum issue that we may be straddled with.
I fully agree, but what I was wondering about was just, if it passes in November, is it going to adopt the ordinance that we would be creating now, or would it adopt the other one? So basically, so regardless of what we do here, if that passes in November, we got a whole other direction anyway. So.
But my point is, again, think about the choice the citizen's going to have when they go to that voting booth. If we do this, the choice is going to be variances, no variances. If we repeal it altogether, the choice is going to be wetlands protection or no wetlands protection. I think if we had no wetlands protection at all, they're going to have a much more compelling case to get it passed than if we already have existing stuff, See my point?
I understand and agree your point.
So is Howard and the leadership of the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance, are they going to support that idea?
Probably not. It kind of puts them in a tough position.
What idea are we talking about?
The variance idea.
I told you before that the concept of a variance inside that 35-foot, I would support. I said that twice in open meetings before tonight.
The devil's in the details, you said.
That's correct, and it is, okay? And that's what disappointed me with when you brought forward this item of not having exactly what you wanted spelled out there so I could have read it and studied it and come in here and say, I'm for it or against it, or I think we need to modify this. But I think also I feel like this is an issue of trying to compromise, okay? And I'm all for that, okay? And I think the people on the Wetlands Committee are for that also. But I don't like to be in a position where, a workshop is not seconded. I think that's a terrible precedent for the board to keep on doing. I don't like to be in a position where I've brought forward amendments to our wetlands ordinances on 2 occasions in November of 2013, where to clarify exactly the issue that the chairman just brought up, so there wouldn't be this issue. And what happened? I didn't even get a second to move on to discussion.
Can I ask a question on that, if you don't mind?
Sure, please.
Your suggestion would be an absolute moot point if that referendum passed. Do you agree with that? That would, if the referendum passed, it would have wiped out all the compromises you just made. Do you agree to that?
But yes, I agree to that. I agree to that, but I also disagree with the statement that there's nothing that can be done about it.
Why didn't the Wetlands Alliance put some sort of buffer, some sort of variance procedure in their referendum?
Well, one of the things is that the board, in its haste to get rid of this stuff, was moving at such a speed that we had a time constraint on us. Right now, we're just making the deadlines in order to get this thing on the ballot, and we just did. Had we been another month or 2 later, we couldn't have even gotten this on the ballot. So, as far as causing the issue, you, the board, caused the issue by moving this thing so precipitously. How many times did you hear the citizens say, myself say, what is the rush? Okay? If you would have allowed this thing to be slowed down, yeah, the thing wouldn't have been changed this year. Okay? There wouldn't have been a ballot initiative, but we possibly could have worked something out.
Well, I think I said a long time ago the time compromise was over. But anyway, if there's no support from you guys, I'm going to withdraw my motion.
I'm going to say something. One of the things about politicians, we run on one issue and then we get into office and we change our mind. I ran on the issue of sending this wetland ordinance back to Tallahassee, and I stand by that. I will not change my mind on that. The people who voted for me in 2010, they elected me over Mr. Kessler, and basically I stand by that election, and I stand by my statement that I will send this thing back, if possible, to Tallahassee, and that's where I stand.
Mr. Moore, you ran on jobs. I didn't see one bumper sticker that say, get rid of the wetlands, vote for more. I didn't see one sign out there of all your, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of signs that said, get rid of the wetlands ordinance. I saw jobs, jobs, jobs. That's what you ran on.
I'll withdraw my motion. If we want to continue discussion, then we'll talk about Dan Rapp. I get the feeling you're not going to support it.
Let's finish the discussion. We're this
Well,
far,
I mean, we're this far into it, you know, but it's like I said, you know, I agree with you that I believe people should be allowed to have access to all their property. To, you know, if that 35 foot is standing in their way, I believe they should have the variance. I just think there should be some other things right along with it, like the grandfathering aspect and other things. But anyway.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to bring something back, the key I'm trying to get to here, fellas, is the choice the voters are going to have. If whatever variance procedure, Richard, if you want to bring something up, I'd be happy to make a motion on it. If whatever variance procedures you want, but I honestly believe there is some popular sentiment for protection of wetlands. But when most people think wetlands, they think the marshes and the rivers and stuff like that, not a swamp bog in somebody's backyard full of moccasins, or not. But I'm not even addressing
Are there
that.
citizens to speak on this issue?
Sir? Yes, sir.
There's
There's
no
some
motion
citizens.
on the floor.
I thought there was a motion in the second.
I'm withdrawing my motion. Richard, if you want to let him speak, I wouldn't do it.
I'd like to make one last point.
There's nothing to even speak about. There's no motion.
We keep throwing out protection of the wetlands, and
Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry. Please have a seat.
All right, I'll say the point of order. Wasn't there supposed to be citizens to speak before the board entered into discussion?
we're kind of pretty far down that road now.
Okay, go ahead.
The point is, wetlands will continue to be protected in Wakulla County. You know, a lot of folks like to say that that's not going to happen. We have been pushed for the past 6 months to listen to the state. Listen to the state. They're trying to tell us. Well, Thursday, February 20th, 2014, in the Tallahassee Democrat, I'm just going to read a couple quotes here. A DEP spokesman said the authority to challenge such amendments rests with the DEO, and the change by Wakulla County was not a cause for concern. DEP determined that the county's proposed comprehensive plan amendment would not result in an adverse impact to important state resources. Agency spokeswoman Mara Berger wrote in an email Wednesday. Another quote, DEP spokesman Patrick Gillespie said later Wednesday the agency's decision to not oppose a plan does not counter to its previous comments. While the county's requirements related to buffers exceed those of the state, DEP believes that setback requirements under ERP, which are the state rules, are adequate to ensure that wetlands are not adversely impacted. Gillespie said in an email, setbacks for existing karst features and springs, which also provide a valuable tool in protecting water quality, will remain in place. For those who don't know, he was referring to not state procedures in that last comment, but our local county procedures that give up to 300 feet of protection around springs, sinkholes, and karst features. Wetlands will not be adversely impacted in Wakulla County, and I appreciate the attempt to compromise, but if I felt that we were causing an adverse impact to the wetlands, I would go along with it, but I don't feel that it's necessary.
Okay, I want to remind the chairman that there's no motion even on the floor. I withdraw it.
Okay, so we've withdrawn the motion and the second. Okay, so basically this is a moot point at this point, right?
My second.
The citizen's going to be done. I wouldn't do it. There is no motion.
All right, I'm going to move on ahead. And these cards that I have, whenever we get to the citizens to be heard section, you know, those that have not already spoken in the first citizens to be heard, then I'll let it.
But I had a call in for this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Will he be able to speak to second citizens to be heard?
Tell you what, I'm going to follow what it was I did a while ago, just for tonight. But whenever we get to the discussion thing, I do want to talk about commissioners with this. Okay, Mr. Lambu?
I can speak now?
I tell you what, no, I'm gonna hold off, Mr. Lumby. I'm gonna move on to county attorneys, and we're gonna discuss this at the end. County attorney.
Nothing.
Okay, the county administrator.
Nothing.
Okay, now, citizens to be heard. Any for the second one? Okay.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman, of the
Yes.
citizens that had a card in for the last item,
I'm going to allow them to, we're gonna, in this citizens B section. Okay, the first one gonna speak is gonna be you, Taylor.
Is he gonna get to speak twice if he also filled out a card on the wetlands issue too?
Yeah, do I get double time?
No.
You gonna let the people speak, Richard, that fill out a card on the item?
I was gonna let them speak in the citizens be heard section.
I signed up late for the Commissioner Merritt's thing because that would permit a variance procedure, and was nothing about nothing on there. You know, you want a workshop, you had multiple opportunities, and I'm not even on the Wetlands Committee, and you had multiple opportunities to have a workshop and to try to do this. And you didn't think the citizens were going to make the 30% number, and they did, and I'm just overjoyed because it's passing, fellas. Mr. Moore, you did not run on wetlands. You may have had your cronies sitting around, I don't know what you drink, but whatever it was you drinking, chatting about wetlands, what you're going to do after you get elected on jobs, and you were not elected on jobs. You were elected because of a bogus headline in the Wakulla News. That's how you got elected. And I would remind you of that. And fellas, it's going to pass. The wetlands ordinance, the referendum is going to pass. Mr. Russell is in the, is he, I guess he's not here, Chris is here. Tell your dad it ain't get Jerry Moore night. It's, you know, I didn't make this letter up. I didn't make the quote in the paper up. You know, I do a lot of stupid things, but I'm not stupid enough to call a man a liar that does not lie. I want to read you something here. And it's full of...
Should you all be going on without all your commissioners?
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead, continue.
you don't listen to me. That's why he's in the bathroom. I'm sorry for all this. I have a problem, as you well know, with keeping things straight, but I had a quote, and I wanted to... Here we go! This is something I wrote earlier today with additional dialogue by Charles Dickens. Okay? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us, we were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way. That's from Tale of Two Cities. What's the hinge pin in this introduction? I guess about, what, 1890, somewhere in the late 1800s. Citizens, for us here in Wakulla, us citizens, water? Gonna be good or it's gonna be bad? How's it gonna turn? It's gonna be heaven, it's gonna be hell. There was no... Your actions just degrade this situation and belie the truth. Your arguments belie the science. Where's the science on this wetlands deal? None presented. It's all political. It's all oligarchical. Tale of Two Cities was written about the French Revolution, you know, which is the foundation of our country, believe it or not. 1776. It was sweeping the world. And I'm glad we have, I'm overjoyed we have the citizens that we have that maintain an interest, not to get their foot in the door and make a few bucks, but just out of good policy concerns and love
Appreciate it, Mr.
for
Mayor.
the county.
Our next speaker is Chuck Hess.
Don't forget your bottle, you.
Gosh, it's so much here tonight, it's hard to get started on what to talk about. First, the guy on the road, he seemed very pre-decision on what he was talking about. They've already made their decision, so public input is, at this point, is unimportant. That just always annoys me. And I don't have any dog in that fight, except that just seems wrong. As far as the wetlands go, you know, I think Mr. Merritt was right. You would be advantageous for him to do his program, because it would weaken the whole idea of passing the wetlands resolution. But so go ahead, march down your road. But the problem I see is that when you started this and you've been justifying your opposition to wetlands as property rights, and you have a solution here that solves the whole property rights issue, and you won't take that solution and march forward, it just seems like it's not a property rights issue. So you have another issue here of why you're supporting this new program. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Linda Beckman.
I'd like to address the realignment issue. There have been some points on both sides that I can understand. There is a need to do something about what's happening in front of the high school, the safety issue. That seems to be the major concern, the safety of the kids. That's what I'm hearing. And from the DOT standpoint, I don't know what their major concern is. But I think I'm hearing from everybody here and back of me that the safety of the kids is the main reason for doing this at all. So I don't think there's a problem with that, but it seems like Mr. Kessler said, it seems intuitive that if you have a road that will peel off more than half of the traffic from that light that will be in front of the high school, it would be folly to close it. And I really think that every avenue should be researched as to how to safely keep that open. I don't think a roundabout is the only thing. I don't know what the law is with flashing red light close to a regular stop light. There might be a little wiggle room in there. Or even a flashing orange light, just to straighten out that particular intersection and allow all that traffic to flow away from the high school. So that's just my sincere suggestion to everybody, to really follow through and make sure that that particular
avenue stays open. DOT has already purchased the property. They're not going to change that idea. They have their idea of going through the property. What would they need the property for if they change that? So that's a big issue that they won't be acceptable to. But it doesn't affect them whatsoever to revisit their decision about the intersection that's already there. So that's basically what my suggestion is for that. Okay, thank you.
Richard, are these the people that we're going to talk on my agenda item?
Yeah.
Are you going to restrict them to the agenda item, or can they talk about whatever they want to?
If I've got 5 citizens here, all 5 of these, I want to ask the Board of Direction as well. All 5 of these citizens have spoken several times, and they've also, all 5 of these citizens spoke in the first citizens to be heard section. You know, and we did have say in the past that those who spoke in the citizens to be heard section was in, you know, either one or the other. And I think I'm gonna put these aside for right now because whenever we go to our discussion, I want us to discuss that as well.
Good idea.
Okay, so I'm going to put these aside right now, and the reason I am because all 5 of these citizens have spoken multiple times tonight, plus all 5 of these citizens have spoken in the first citizens to be heard, so I'm going to move ahead to our discussion items for each commissioner. I'm going to begin with Randy.
I just, along those lines, I guess, I really don't want to see these board meetings get out of hand. Right. I appreciate your honesty and you're trying to accommodate the citizens, but we have to have rules to follow. I mean, I see you trying to decide, well, should I do this? And I did this last time, now I should do this. If we're just consistent, if there's no motion, if there's no second on the motion, and you know, I was chairman for a year. I didn't do any better than you. I didn't walk away hated though, because at least I was consistent and fair. I didn't agree with everybody, but I think everybody at least believed that I treated everybody with respect. And I hate to see I don't want to, you know, if we just say, if you're here to speak and you fill out a card, you can speak on any item, people are going to get up and speak, we'll be here all night. And we appreciate citizen input, but it really should be on pertinent issues that we're actually going to vote on. That's really all I got to say for now. I'll think, maybe I can think of something better to say a little later. But that's it for now.
All right, go ahead. David or Jerry?
Basically, a couple of things. Former Commissioner Mike Stewart and his wife are going through a very difficult time. So when you say your prayers tonight, say a prayer for Mike and his wife, and also the Reverend McCall of the Medart Assembly of God. He's going through a very difficult time. So if you would, in your prayers, say a prayer for these folks that maybe they can survive and bear their pain.
The only thing I'm going to say is just repeat what I said earlier. I feel very strongly about citizens being able to speak and having access, and I want to open it up amongst the 5 of us to discuss okay, going forward. If there's no motion or second, do y'all still want to allow the citizens to speak, or do we just move on? I've already heard from from you. I want Ralph.
I think move on.
All right.
You want to hear from me?
Yes, go ahead.
I think the citizens come to the meeting. They want to speak on a certain issue. It's on the agenda. They fill out a card. If the board decides that it's not going to discuss the issue, the citizens should have the right to speak.
Can't they do that under citizens to be heard, though, Howard?
And they have already spoken under citizens to be heard, just like the situation
Well,
that
the
is occurring
situation we have tonight, you know, we have 5. I was going to move them to citizens to be heard. All 5 of those citizens have already spoken. The first citizens to be heard.
It would be prudent then to wait to the second citizen to be heard to see what happens in the meeting. I mean, we've established a citizen to be heard at the beginning of the meeting. We established one at the end of the meeting. I think we're really trying to accommodate citizen input. I really do.
It doesn't feel that way, though. It doesn't feel that way.
6 o'clock. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Well, I'm sorry I feel that way also, but something must be occurring that makes me feel that way. It seems like we're spending a lot of time on how to restrict the citizens rather than give them more and more time.
Howard, you said I did a good job as chairman. Do you think I restricted citizen
When did
input?
do you have that on tape?
No.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I misunderstood what you were insinuating then. But when you said the meetings in the past year were more cordial and smooth than they ever had been, maybe I misunderstood what you were saying.
That was post-concussion, I think.
Okay. Anyway,
Okay.
that's the way I ran it without, if there wasn't a motion and a second. That's the way I've always
Mhm.
seen it, Randy. I mean, do you think I was rude to citizens? Do you think I was shutting them out by...
Look, it's just a matter of courtesy. A citizen appears at a meeting. He wants to speak about item A that's on the agenda. He fills out a card, or she fills out a card. Item A comes up, we have a situation where the board refuses to discuss it. That citizen may have taken off time to come here for that agenda item, rushing back to someplace else to do whatever he has to do with his or her life. I think we owe it to the citizen
I
to
think
let him
that's a
speak.
realistic interpretation of what's really going on, though. And then
I
was
think,
it the same five people that...
It was the same five people.
I understand your point.
Yeah, I would just, you're making a ruling that affects everybody, not just those 5 people.
Commissioner Thomas, go ahead.
I've said this before, at least as far as I'm concerned, citizens to be heard is 6 days a week. I'm probably not going to return your call on Sunday, but my phone number is 597-3858. You can call me anytime, and I'll be glad to discuss it, whether you agree with me or disagree, and I've done that by email and by phone call. What we're here to do in these meetings is move the county's business forward. If we don't have a first and we don't have a second, then that business is not moving forward. That doesn't mean that issue is dead, but it might be dead tonight. So if we're not moving the county's business forward, there's no need to just beat these things down. But if you don't like the fact that I didn't second it or we didn't, call me tomorrow. Call all 5 of us. I mean, that's what we're here for, and maybe some information will come to light. There's very few things that can't be done at the next meeting or another meeting, but we have an obligation to move the county's business forward, and if we don't have support among this board, why do we just keep beating an issue down? So this is not an issue of suppressing citizens' voice.
Okay, Commissioner Cashner? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I said my piece.
Now, I was just commenting on yours. I have my own discussion item, too.
Oh, you're pulling from other discussion items? Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, do you have any discussion items?
I do as well.
Okay, go ahead, I'll let you finish now.
First of all, maybe let's lighten it up a little bit. I'd like to say thank you to the folks who put on the Wakulla County Swine Show last Saturday. Fantastic turnout. We ran out of food, just crowd, standing room only. I think there were 38 kids who competed, and it was just a wonderful show. 48th annual swine show, I believe. So a lot of volunteers, a lot of hard work went into that, a lot of families, and the children learned a lot of valuable life lessons, and so I think it's a wonderful representation of the agricultural nature of our community, even though we're growing away from that. Also, as the board's appointed commissioner for the Wakulla County Coalition of Youth, I just wanted to give a quick update about the community center. If you haven't been over there, that it is up and running. It's continuing to grow and expand, but there's things going on there. The floor is down in the gym now. The volleyball net is installed. I'd also like to give a personal thank you to Commissioner Arch, or I'm sorry, Dr. Arch now, and Dr. Hillier for kind of starting the conversation and giving us a list of folks with the RFP that she put together. The Coalition of Youth have reached out to everyone that's on that list, and a lot of those folks are starting to come into the process as well. And I've got a list of those, including Mr. Damon with the Boy Scouts. Thank you, sir. Hope you can be a great part of that. So there's a lot of good things going on there. I'd just like people to realize that we're blessed to receive a grant to kind of kick this thing off and hopefully take some of the burden of local taxpayers' dollars and serve our community at the same time. I've got a quote here from the Coalition of Youth. Thank you, Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners, for understanding the critical nature of this grant opportunity. While we keep waiting for our daily plate to not be so full, we have not once lost sight of the goal of a vibrant community center for Wakulla youth and families. Thank you.
Good. Glad to hear that's going good.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I'll be brief. And I guess I need your input of what is it that motivates the board not to second to have a workshop, not to vote to have a workshop on different things. I made a motion for a workshop dealing with our senior citizens. No second. Tonight, I consider this 319 intersection a very serious issue for our county and our youth especially. No second. I mean, I cannot picture a workshop that any of you would recommend having that I would not second. So I'm missing something here. What motivates you not to have the workshop?
I'll tell you, mine is that I don't have the concerns that you do about it. I understand the issue. I understand what's going on with the intersection. The DOT man was just here for 45 minutes explaining everything. State road.
Okay, fair enough. What about with the senior citizens of our county?
My thought on that was that we have a senior citizens council that's tasked with doing exactly what you wanted to discuss at your workshop. And I thought that would be disrespectful to them for us to come up with our own ideas about how seniors would run when we have a senior citizens council.
The senior citizen council is who?
They request.
Where? Who are they, the senior citizen council?
Who's on the council? Anybody know?
Is it a county body?
I think, is it an advisory board for the
It's
Senior Citizen Center?
It's an advisory board for the Senior Citizen Center.
Oh, for the Senior Citizen Center. I was not looking for that, and that was clear in my agenda item. I was looking to have a discussion about how to help and address issues of all of our citizens including any input from the senior center, which would be that senior council.
You had went to them, Howard, and approached them and said, I would like to have a workshop and involve them in it. And it looked like this was something, your issue, you wanted to go after.
You wanted to go after their transportation budget.
That is totally false, Mr. Moore. You are
were talking
off the
about
wall.
their transportation. They serve 800
I
people a
never
week.
spoke about their transportation. Now you've lied before, Commissioner Moore, and now you're lying again. That's terrible. That's terrible. And the board sits back.
I heard you talking
Excuse me,
about
excuse me,
transportation.
and the board sits back.
I heard you
and
talking
doesn't
about
call them on it.
transportation.
When you've lied about me
You
in the
cannot touch their
past-
transportation budget.
Man, that's very
You cannot
sad.
do it.
Commissioner Moore, Commissioner Kessler.
That's very sad. Very sad.
I hope I explained myself. At least
Well,
I tried to.
yeah, and just to let you know that I did go to the senior center and I reached out to Maurice Langston, me to him, saying, how can we help you? That's what motivated me coming to the board and asking for that, right? I was looking how we as a board can help our senior citizens. How can we help and they were included in the mix. They were not. I mean,
That's not the impression I got, sir.
okay, well, you could have asked me.
Well,
And that could have come out under discussion. Okay, but the thing is,
for other reasons, let's just leave it at that.
okay,
That's not the impression
but this
I got.
thing about transportation and with this, the thing about Commissioner Moore accusing me of having been in a lawsuit with the Crumbs and refusing to divulge information, totally false. Totally false.
I did find out that instead of 600,000, it came out to be
There you go.
725,000.
I was never sued by the Crumbs, Mr. Moore. Can you get that through your head?
The suit was because of you.
Okay, Commissioners, let's move forward.
I'd like to respond if I can. You asked about the second. So if there was something that you didn't think needed to go forward and you didn't need additional information on, and someone else made a motion, but you didn't support that, would you second it?
I've done that many times, yes. I've done that many times. I believe that the more discussion we have, the better. That's where I'm coming from. The same thing with the citizens, the same thing with the board. So I'm for that, okay? I may not agree. Maybe I learned something during the discussion process. I don't know, but I'm open to
Do
it.
you think it
and
adds to the conversation to have more input sitting there telling us we're jerks? Does that add to the conversation?
I look at it this way. When people get up there,
That we're stealing money and that we're...
people get up there and...
We're killing kids. Does that add to the conversation?
I don't think discourteous comments add to the conversation.
Everyone can follow Mr.
Excuse me.
Manlow's example, then this would
Right.
be a-
I don't think, but I've had my share of people saying things about me as well. And I think that as a county commissioner, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, okay? And I think that we have to have broad enough shoulders that we're going to have people be discourteous. That doesn't mean we have to be discourteous. That doesn't mean we have to shut off comment. I think, and especially when it's a colleague, and a colleague asks for a workshop, I think that should be automatic.
So, you served on this board a lot longer than any of the rest of us. So have you ever had an example where you refused to give a second?
To a workshop?
To anything, to something a colleague made a motion for, and
for whatever reason, that you didn't second it when you had the opportunity to second it?
I would say over the 9+ years now, that those occasions may have happened, but they are very rare. It doesn't seem to be a rarity
So they
here.
did happen, you're saying?
I would suspect that if I went back there, yes, I would find 1 or 2 instances where that happened. I'm guessing.
And when they happened, you felt justified in that, and you...
I'm saying you grow as you go along, okay? And I'm saying that for discussion purposes of a board to not have a workshop, what does a workshop hurt the board? It only can help them. So stick with the workshop. Give me an explanation why it's to the detriment of the people in the board not to have a workshop.
I beg your pardon, the state just said that they're more or less going to have a workshop. They did. The gentleman who was here said that later in the year that they would have a citizen's input on this project. Now, maybe you can call a workshop something else.
Yeah, I think where I'm asking for a workshop of this commission or more is because of there's a discrepancy with this. There are questions I think that this board needs to address regarding the safety of our children. The FDOT, I'm hearing, is already on a path that this representative says they're not changing. I understand where they're coming from. I'm saying we as a board, it is our issue to address these things and, if necessary, try to change them if we find out that that's a reasonable thing to do.
Howard, when you frame it, when you frame it as an issue of safety of our children, that demonizes everybody that didn't either second your you understand what I'm saying? Do you think for a second that I'm any less concerned about the safety of children than you are?
So why not have the workshop?
Because we have experts at DOT, that's what they do for a living, designing these 2 state road intersections. I sit on the community traffic safety team. They strongly recommended this. I've got with David to get with Tommy to be darn sure that they didn't pull money away from one of our other intersections. Right, David? We made them respond in writing that you did not take this money off, because I would have never supported that if they had jumped priorities and went down there. Bloxham is our #1 priority in working south. They assured us it was a different pot of money. If it wasn't used on that intersection, it would have went to a different county, somebody in the district. That's why I didn't need a workshop. I understand the issue, and I just don't feel any need to discuss it any further.
Well, I heard the FDOT person say, well, we at that time, when we did this plan, we didn't do roundabouts at intersections of 2 state roads.
There's a difference between Harry's opinion at the CRTPA and DOT's opinion about roundabouts.
Well, but I'm just saying that was a comment that I heard him make, as if now there may be, and I don't know if there is, okay? Now there may be good evidence that this is a useful device. So, if it's safer to do that, is it safer to do that? I don't know the answer to that.
Not only do I understand the issue, why would I want to get berated again and accused of being business partners with Jerry and somehow benefiting from this?
Well, Jerry's making lots of money, so that would be a good partnership, but I'm not saying that...
Good for him. He sold a piece of land to the state. I wish I could have done that,
that's
but
fine.
I didn't.
My mother always told me, when somebody offers you money, just take it, son. And I believe she was a very wise woman.
Well, let me borrow a line from the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance when they said, trust the science, and where are the experts, and where are the science? This meeting could have gone completely different tonight if you would have lined up as many PEs as DOT has had look at this. Some experts. You know, if
that's what the workshop's for, Mr.
You had
Thomas.
buy-in from the sheriff's department, if you had buy-in from the school board, you cannot sit here and indict the entire leadership of our county and the parents that they answer to and think that that's okay.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, I'm not indicting anyone. I'm asking for a workshop. I'm asking for a workshop which you've denied, okay? That's what I was asking for, to address these issues, to have the board discuss these issues, to have those people come down, not just a paid person who's favorite to one side, and that's the only voice you hear. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having as much input as possible, and judge what that input is. Is it from somebody who makes their living off of work from the FDOT? I don't know. I don't know what the background is. But when we have our workshop, we will know because it's our workshop, but now we're not having
Do you
one.
mean like have the DOT people come down and explain this project and look at other issues?
I think the secretary, at this point in time, I think the FDOT secretary deserves to come down and take part in discussions that hopefully we'll have in the future here, which we didn't vote for tonight. Yes, I think this is that serious.
But at that workshop, you would like DOT to be here to explain the project and the design of it and why it's here?
Why moving 11,000 plus trips from where they don't pass in front of the high school, putting them in front of the high school is the best possible solution.
Is that exactly what they're going to do?
We received that answer tonight.
No, they're not changing their mind about this. So at the public input, they're talking about crosswalks and designs of entranceways into a driveway. You heard him, what he said.
If you go to Chiefland, Florida, they have the same identical intersection going into an intersection with the high school. It was put in by the state. It's the very identical intersection that we will have in 98.
And it wasn't there, I think, probably 3 years ago. It had a Y merge into it onto 98, identical.
Anyway, Howard, I just I didn't think it rose to the occasion of needing a workshop. That's why I didn't second it.
And I'm certain that if you don't agree with something, that you would not always give a second, and I'm certain that you've done that in the past.
I would agree to a workshop on anything. Try me out.
We have a new reporter for the Wakulla News. I would like to welcome her to Wakulla. She's sitting there.
She's been here a while.
Welcome to Wakulla County.
Thank you. You and the DOT guy.
Okay, do we have any more discussion amongst commissioners?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion adjourned.
Well, you got good, clear direction now anyway, Richard.
Yeah.